Hello everybody, my name is Zen and welcome to my review of Vessel of Hatred for Diablo 4. This is going to be a pretty extensive review, but I'm going to try to keep it short. So we're going to talk about gameplay and systems and story. But when it comes to the story stuff, I will break it into two parts. We're going to have a spoiler-free area and then a full-on spoilers area. And I'll denote that with the chapters on the YouTube video, so you can just scroll the bar. If you don't want spoilers, you can just go past that part when we talk about the story spoilers in particular. But let's just jump right in with my TLDR of the whole expansion so far, which is that it is really good. I'm very much enjoying it. I've played all the way through the story and I've done a substantial amount of the end game stuff to kind of get a feel for what they're doing with everything, how the systems intertwine with the story and everything in Vessel of Hatred. And I would recommend it if you're somebody who enjoys playing Diablo 4, or if you're somebody who picked Diablo 4 up at launch and hasn't touched it. This is actually a really good time to come back, because you have missed out on 5 seasons of awesome updates that have just made the game really, really good. And now it's all kind of packed into one big package for Season 6 and Vessel of Hatred, which are at the same time, right? So Season 6 has launched with Vessel of Hatred, and I do recommend playing those together, but we'll talk about how that kind of meshes together or doesn't in an upcoming portion of this video. But the base version of the expansion sits at $40. Just says MSRP. So if that is too much for you, then like if you're struggling to be able to pay for something that's $40, then I would say maybe wait for a sale, because the expansion will 100% go on sale sometime this year, probably around Christmas or maybe slightly before that, maybe Black Friday, stuff like that. But you can play the base version of Diablo 4 on, say, the Xbox, right? So you boot it up because you have Game Pass, you get Diablo 4 there, and then you can just buy the expansion as long as you have Game Pass. It'll work together. That's actually the way that I'm using it right now on my Xbox, because I play both on PC and Xbox. I've played about 30% of this expansion on the Xbox, and it's all run pretty good. Been fairly happy with that, running on an Xbox Series X. And on the PC, I have a pretty chunky PC, but just side note, I was having some performance issues with the expansion. I didn't have them prior to the expansion, and the result was I just ended up turning off ray tracing, and that seems to have kind of fixed it. It's weird. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but it runs like a dream on the Xbox. So like I said, if you have it, the base game with Game Pass, you can just get the expansion, but you don't get the expansion with Game Pass. That's kind of the point there, is if you want to play this, you're going to have to pay $40 if you want to play now, or you can wait until it goes on sale. So $40 is worth it to you, then absolutely. I got my keys for free, just as a disclosure. So the Blizzard sent me the keys, so I didn't pay anything for them. However, I would absolutely pay $60 for the expansion. But I am someone who really loves Diablo and plays quite a lot of it, so that's kind of where I'm at. I feel like it's about a $60 value, but if it were at $60, even I would kind of go, ooh, a lot of people are not going to like that. So $40 seems just about right. I think that is the perfect price point. So if it works for you, then I recommend it. Otherwise, I would wait. But what are you getting in this expansion for your $40? Well, a bunch of new systems, a bunch of new gameplay systems, including like runes, which you can put into your gear. Now, if you've played Diablo 2, you kind of understand the rune system a bit. In this case, it's like a plus B equals C. That's kind of how it works. It's a, if you do this, so like if you use your, I don't know, if you use your dodge roll or whatever, you get this like offering. It's what the resource is called. And then the B part of it is then something happens. So if you do this, then something happens. So if you do your dodge roll, you get 100 offering. I don't know if that's the amount that you actually get for it. I'm just coming up with an example. And then if you do that, then maybe you cast a spell. You cast a spell for free. That it just kind of goes off. So for example, my Spiritborn, which is the new class we'll talk about in a second, has this like pestilence ability that I can get to cast if I get like 100 offerings. So basically I would have to, for the way that my runes were working, if I did 2 dodge moves, I would get a free pestilence that would spawn. And it, it's not nothing, but it's nice. And there are some ones that are way more powerful than that, especially as you get higher quality runes, but that's like the basic system of how it works. you know, the potion one. So like if you use a potion, you get like 200 offering, which means that sometimes you'll have a thing that costs like 300 offering because it's a really powerful effect. So you would have to use 2 potions to get there, which is you know, mildly frustrating. But if you had something that wasn't 2 potions or 200 points worth and it was 100, and then you're potentially proccing it twice depending on the internal cooldown of certain things. So it's kind of a cool system. That's like a gearing part of it. There is new legendaries. There's a whole new end game systems that we're briefly going to touch on because I'm going to do entire videos here. But you get those, and then you also get the new class, the Spiritborn, which I would say is like it's a hybrid between like a Diablo 3 monk and a witch doctor, but it also has a lot of like it's kind of hard to describe, like assassin type vibes too. There's a lot going on here with this class, and you could do all sorts of different stuff. But in general, it has these trees that you can go down, and I don't mean like a skill tree. Yeah, the skill tree has that, but I mean like build trees, and you can mix and match them too. So you've got different spirits. You got the bear spirit, you've got the eagle, the jaguar, and the centipede. Now the bear is like big smash, you know. the eagle is like a lot of displacement, throwing knives and movement. The jaguar is a lot of punching really fast, and then of course the centipede is a lot of poisons. For me, the way that I went into this expansion was to just not look at anything, go completely blind, because that's the way I wanted to enjoy it, and come up with my own build with the Spiritborn. And you know what? I really enjoyed that process of kind of figuring out the different skills. And I haven't even tried everything yet, but I've gone through like 3 or 4 different builds, and what I've landed on is I really like the centipede build. It's super fun, especially when you get the supporting legendaries for it. You just kind of apply a bunch of poisons, and there's a little bit of healing that comes from that, and there's a lot of control going on because you're fearing things when you cast this particular poison spell. But it's fun, and like I said, you can mix and match those things because there's your like level 16 thing that you unlock is you can make it so any of the skills are a certain type. So you can make any of the jaguar skills count as a centipede skill, and that helps with legendaries later on as well. So it's cool. It's a really cool class. It has a lot of dynamism in it, and there's a lot of different builds that I think are going to be good. You could easily go online and search for the top build there is, but I would actually recommend just testing everything out and just having fun with it. But of course, it is a Diablo expansion, which means we also get a bunch of new story, and including a new zone, the zone of Nahantu, which if you play Diablo 2, that's what Act 3 is. That's where you're at. So we get to go there, and it's very pretty in this game. I enjoyed being in this zone. There's a really cool moment towards the end that just kind of blows your mind with what they did with the level design, and it's cool. It's really cool. And that comes with all new dungeons and a stronghold and a bunch of quests and stuff that you can go and do and explore, and you could take your time with it, or you can blast through it, just doing whatever you want to do the way that you play Diablo. But the story does pick up right where it left off, essentially. Again, I'm not gonna jump into spoilers here. I will let you know when I do. But for this, I would say I was fairly soft on the story to start with, and then there was pretty soon in the story there's a cool spike, and I was like, oh, I'm in. This is awesome. And then it kind of peters out again. And then it slowly starts building, and I started getting really into it, and then it ends. And it kind of feels like there is a culmination, but that the ending is open-ended, and that is intentional. It is intentional for the ending to feel like it's not done, because it's not. The story is going to take place over the entire expansion lifetime, not just as you jump in. So as the new seasons come out, we'll be getting additions to the story. In the previous version of these seasons, the previous 5 seasons, we got things like the story with the vampire people or the constructs and stuff like that. And the story that they added there was really fun, and it gave context to the season going on, but you get the sense that they are really cooking with the story and the seasons for this to keep you coming back to see what happens next. And actually, I think that is brilliant, because it leaves off in a good spot where it's like, oh, we still have so much to do, now let's do it. You know, let's get into season 7 and see what's going to be added with that. And then from then on, whether or not you get a big culmination at the end of the expansion, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows outside of Blizzard themselves. However, I do feel like if it does that and then we lead into a new expansion, that would be the perfect jumping off point to go to a second expansion. I'm kind of excited about that potential because I started really enjoying the story as it got towards the end. People don't like how it ends. That's the main criticism, which I think I totally understand 100%. And I share those thoughts, but it's not because I'm down on it. It's just that I wish that there was more. It took a while to complete it. I would say that you're going to get your money's worth for the amount of content you're getting, but it does feel like, I wish that we were into the next part already. And I think that's probably the best thing you can say about a story in a game is like, you want to continue it. You want the next piece as soon as possible because it has grabbed you. And if I ended the story and I was just like, okay, whatever, I guess I'm done. I'm not really excited to see where this goes or anything. Then that would be a pretty damning thing to happen to the game, because the whole point of bringing you back for each season would then dissipate. And what's the point if you're not even interested in the story? And that's kind of what they're going to be doing for future seasons. I don't know. But so far, the story, like I said, it started slow. It had an immediate, really cool spike. It kind of peters out, and then it slowly builds and gets really, really, really cool. And then it just kind of, the air just kind of goes out of the balloon for a second, because you're like, wait, what? Like, I wanted the next thing, and it's not here yet. But I think now is the point that we should start talking about spoilers. So I'm going to give you a second, in case you're eating Cheetos, you got to lick the cheese off your fingers or something before you pause the video, either on your phone or computer or wherever. So give you a minute before we jump in and just say that I think the story as a whole, I thought it was good, but there were low parts, which we are about to start talking about right now. Okay, story spoilers. So it starts out obviously right where you left off. You got Neyrelle, who has the Soul Stone with Mephisto in it, and you got to go track her down. As we saw in the cinematic for Vessel of Hatred, that she's not having a good time of it. Mephisto's in there just like whispering his sweet nothings to her, and she is struggling. She's on the struggle bus. What ends up happening is a couple of the people from the Church of Light have survived from the absolute decimation in hell. One of which is a knight who, let's call him Mr. Butthead. I think that's a good way to put it. He's kind of what you would expect a bad guy to be. He's kind of annoying. He shows up when you don't want him to, and he does things that are just pure evil, and you're just like, come on, guy, like, you are stereotypical. But he is not the main bad guy of the expansion. Still definitely Mephisto, but this guy does show up right at the beginning, and he has driven a wedge between people like the normal Church of Light people and these burned knights is what they're called. So the people who've come back and are like wanting vengeance for what happened in hell, and they are coming after Neyrelle, and that's their whole thing. They want to find her, and they want to make her pay, and they want to get the Soul Stone and all that, which honestly, even if this guy found the Soul Stone, wouldn't be a good thing. But you end up on the trail of Neyrelle, and this knight shows up, and I was kind of like, yeah, this is okay. I'm kind of enjoying this. And there's a cutscene where he just straight up stabs you, like not just like I'm gonna poke you in the kidney or whatever, which would be deadly in normal circumstances, but in Diablo it's not, obviously. No, he takes his freaking sword and he shoves it through your back all the way through your chest, and your character falls dead into a river and then flows down into Nahantu, and a Spiritborn revives you. And it's just like, he uses magic to bring you back. And that's kind of where things kick off, and that's where we start in Nahantu and searching down for Neyrelle and everything, and it's pretty cool. But that's also where it starts dipping a bit again, where you're going through Nahantu and you're kind of learning about the zone and the spirits and the Spiritborn. And as a Spiritborn, playing through, I feel like there were moments where the story really aged you playing that character. Like it kind of feels like it was meant to be played through by a Spiritborn, but it doesn't really matter, because the moment that you start the expansion story, regardless if you're making a new character or not, it takes that into account, and it talks as though your character was the one that did all the stuff in the base campaign. So it just kind of assumes not necessarily the character is the one doing it, but the player, and it addresses the character as if it's the same person, which I kind of like. Actually, I really like that, and I think that's a big win for the story and how it's being told. And another huge win for it is that your character is actively involved in many cutscenes. And I don't mean like the top-down things where your characters are just talking between each other, but like it gets all up in there, and it shows your character's face, and your character is talking and is like really involved in these cutscenes, and it makes it feel like your character is part of the story. I felt less like that in Diablo 4 base where I do in Vessel of Hatred, and I think they did a great job of it. Their in-game normal like live rendering cinematics, like the actual in-game cinematics, they're hit and miss sometimes. Some of them are beautiful. Others you're like, what is the shadow doing over there? Like even with ray tracing on or off, it all kind of looked good most of the time, but there are times where it didn't look great, and that's really not the fault of the artist. It's just I think the engine failing them a tiny bit in places where the lighting doesn't seem quite right. But like I said, for the most part, it is fan-freaking-tastic, and I loved it to bits. I loved that your character was a part of everything going on. But as you go through Nahantu and you're learning about what's going on in the zone, and you're tracing down where Nerel went, and you do eventually find her, and she's not in her best, and that is when you realize that someone who is trying to help her, that is like an unseen force, is Akarat. And it's the spirit of Akarat, and you get to trace down where Akarat is, find him, and have him help her, which was really, really, really cool. And that whole build-up is when the story started picking up for me again. And you eventually make it to the point where you have the Soul Stone, you have Nerel, you have this new companion that you've picked up, and you guys are going to go basically imprison the Soul Stone in the spirit realm of Akarat's tomb, where it will be safe there. People can't get in there and get it, like happens in every single Diablo game and Diablo story ever. There's a soul stone, some corrupted person goes and gets it. There's a soul stone and a corrupted angel goes and gets it. There's a soul stone and this person goes and drops it, and whoops, some other kid picked it up and now they've got it. It's like soul stones are just like Skittles, like that they're just handed out everywhere, and that's how demons keep popping up. Like come on people, like think of this is a way better idea of how to get rid of this thing, is to like hide it in the spirit realm of this tomb of this long dead champion who will be able to protect it. And I think that is really cool. However, things don't go according to plan, as you might expect. On your way down there, first of all, I do want to mention, because I said it earlier in the video, there's a super cool set piece where like the three of you, your new companion, I always forget his name, the new Spiritborn guy, the Nerel and yourself are like chanting these things that Akarat set up for this, and it makes the water in this area just completely part, and there's this really cool cinematic and scene where you're like now having to like go down into that area and work your way down to the tomb, and it is so cool. It is so cool. It's one of the coolest parts of the entire expansion. It's one of the coolest parts in Diablo 4 period. It was awesome. I was like, whoa, this is super, super cool. And eventually you do get down there. You do get into the spirit realm with Akarat, and you go, and Nerel puts the soul stone on his body and is done with it. She's no longer connected to it like she was, and it's no longer corrupting her and whispering to her, and Mephisto is gone out of her head. And then betrayal happens, because that little Spiritborn buddy of yours, he don't want any of that. He thinks that he wants to protect his land of Nahantu more than anywhere else. And Mephisto, of course, because it's what he does, was whispering to him and got him to believe that that is the best course of action. He would spare Nahantu of everything that's to come. And this guy is so adamant in defending his land that he is forced to take that decision. He takes the Soul Stone and essentially releases Mephisto. And it ends up in a really cool boss fight. Like, I thought Lilith was a super cool boss fight, but this one was equally as cool in different ways. I think some things with Lilith are better, but I think some things with this one are better. And it is like an avatar of Mephisto. It's not him himself, but you're fighting this crazy giant, like, Stranger Things wolf. It's awesome. And Akarat shows up and is helping fight by getting inside of Mephisto, which is phrasing on that, but you know what I mean. Like, he's a spirit, so he like jumps into the demon and is like fighting the innards there, and is like giving you these power-ups and stuff. And it's a super duper cool fight, and it's a cool climax to the story. And last night when I was playing through it, I got to the end of it, and they were like, yeah, now cool, now you got to go talk to these other people, and we got to go, like, we got to go find Mephisto. And I'm sitting there thinking, wait, crap, is there a lot more to this expansion? I thought this was going to be the end, and it's not. So I went to bed thinking that I still had more to do. And I woke up this morning, and I logged in on the Xbox because I was downstairs eating breakfast, and I pop in, and I go and talk to like the two people it needed me to talk to, and then the achievement popped, and it was like, yeah, you finished Vessel of Hatred. And I was like, oh, come on, I could have done that in like 10 minutes last night. I wish I would have, and I didn't know, because it felt like they were continuing the story. It felt like there were more things to do. And that is where people were getting frustrated, is you kind of get at the end and you're like, oh, but I thought that I was going to go chase down Mephisto now. I thought that was the plan. Like, that, it felt like that was what it was going to tell me to do. I didn't realize that the story was just ending there right now. But that, again, will pick up in the future. So you're just going to have to kind of keep coming back to the game to get the next bit. And I kind of like that, because it means that, in my opinion, they can fit a lot more in there in the expansion lifespan than if they just tried to do like what they've already done and then just do seasonal story bits, kind of like what they did for the base of Diablo 4. I would like it to be a little bit more cohesive, and that seems to be what they are doing here. But it is indeed well acted, well voiced, well written. The music in some of these areas as you're going through is just amazing. I got goosebumps a couple times towards the end where the music is playing and you're pushing forward in the story in these really epic moments. A couple of the boss fights here and there are a little frustrating, but I got through it. I was playing on hard, which that's a whole other thing. They redid the difficulty system, and your levels are not the same. We'll talk about that all in a moment, but just to summarize the spoilery stuff, I feel like it was really, really cool, and I want to see where it goes. I have a theory. My theory is that the final expansion of this game, leading into whatever the next game is going to end up being, will be the lead up to Diablo coming back and having this epic showdown at the end of the expansion after like 6 seasons or whatever it is, getting to the end and fighting Diablo and pushing him back, and then boom, now that ends, and now a new game can be released, and we're moving into the next thing. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't know how long they're going to keep Diablo 4 going, but I have a feeling that that is like the goal. And however many expansions they need to do that, they can probably finagle it in such a way that it happens to be the case that the final expansion, if it's the second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever, is going to do that. That would be really cool, and I would appreciate that a lot. But moving out of spoilers, no more spoilers, right? I'm not going to talk about any more story spoilers. So you're free. If you click to this chapter, you're good. You're good. 100%. We're not going to talk about it anymore. But I did want to talk about the difficulty changes. So no longer do you have like the world tiers that you were going through. Now it's just like normal, hard, expert, master, then torments. So kind of like Diablo 3, how it works. I played through on hard for the entire thing, and I thought it was perfectly balanced for what it was. I probably could have done expert just fine, but I was just kind of cruising. I was just enjoying the ride from point A to point B, and I think hard was the perfect way to do that. So if you're jumping in and you just kind of want to have fun, do either normal or hard, and then just kind of forget about the rest until you hit max level, which, by the way, max level is different. It is no longer level 100. It is level 60, and then there's like 300 Paragon levels that you can gain after that. The level experience requirement to get to 60 feels like it just feels like it takes longer than it did in the previous season to get to 60. But I don't know if that is because I purely did I touched on some of the seasonal stuff, but I mostly just did the campaign. I don't know if that is the case, or if it's one of those things where they did some kind of squish. I'm not entirely sure there. But my recommendation for Vessel of Hatred is to just go in, right, make a seasonal character and play through the expansion. So just play through level 1 all the way through. You'll get to the end of the expansion stuff if you're playing on hard, like I was, like around level 50. That's about when you'll get there, and level 60 being the max. So if you want to hit 60, you either need to play on a slightly harder difficulty to get that more XP, or go do some more experience gaining opportunities in between the story bits. And so while playing as a seasonal character, you do have access to the seasonal stuff, which are these like giant walking monsters with a portal on the back. It's kind of similar to what it was in like in Reaper of Souls, those monsters that had the portal on their back in the fields of whatever, I'm blanking on the name, but like the heavenly area. So you go and fight these things, a bunch of stuff spawn, you kill all the stuff until eventually the thing becomes targetable, and then you kill that, and then you go through the portal, and by the time you get to the end of the portal, you get a bunch of stuff, and some of it is pretty good, like so you get these like elixir type items that increase the reputation that you're getting from the main seasonal reputation, which gets you a bunch of rewards like legendaries and stuff like that. But if you're doing the story stuff, so if you're going into the campaign, by doing the story stuff, you're not getting the reputation for them. So you can pop one of these elixirs, you can do the story stuff and kind of complete both at the same time, but it means that you need to be going in and doing some of those rifts kind of thing, like the I don't remember the name of them, but the portals. You go through you kill the demon portal thing, you go through the portal and you go do that. You kind of have to do that once every, I don't know. It depends on how many times you log out, because you lose the buff. It's like an hour-long buff, just like a normal elixir, but you'll lose it eventually. So it depends on how often you're logging in and out of the game, because you do lose a lot of that stuff when you're not online. So it's really up to you how often you go back and forth. I did it twice through the story, and I really only used the stuff a couple times. But now that I'm done with the campaign, I'm like all in on the seasonal stuff, and I'm pushing through and doing my normal routines, doing any kind of like of the nightmare dungeons and everything, getting glyphs, and you're just kind of pushing forward on the actual like content here, which is nice. I think that it's fun to be able to be like, oh, I did the campaign and now let's jump into the seasonal stuff, but it does feel very separate from each other. Even though you can do them together, it doesn't feel like one is intrinsic to the other, and you can kind of take or leave the seasonal stuff if you so choose. But one thing I would not recommend skipping is doing the mercenary stuff. So that's another new system that got added with Vessel of Hatred, where you have these mercenaries like you do in the previous games. You got like your rogue person and your barbarian person and your shield, your sword and board person. There's also like a demon thing. You got some variety there, but they do provide an intrinsic amount of gameplay value, because you can hire them to have them with you, and they have their own skill tree, kind of like they do in Diablo 3, except way more in depth. You're being able to have them with you at all times, as long as you're playing alone, and then they have like an assist option. So you set them up where when you cast a certain spell, that mercenary that you set for your assist will jump in and do an ability of your choosing from their like loadout when you cast that ability. So you get these kind of like cool combo things, and that exists whether you're in a party or not, which is pretty cool. So when you're playing solo, you've got them following you as you would with Diablo 3, and then when you're with a party, you can still have them coming in and assisting you based on which abilities you've kind of tied them to. And I like that. I think that adds a lot of depth to the system that it doesn't necessarily need to be there, but is a welcome thing. There's also a whole new like hideout where they all are at, and you can mess around with them and hire them or change out their skills and stuff while they're there. It's pretty nice. I enjoy that a lot. You could chat with them, have little conversations, but there's also a new vendor they call it bartering. So you get these materials for playing with the mercenaries, or it's a currency, and you can use that to buy straight up legendaries. And they have like a shop that you can refresh it free once a day without any of the upgrades, because as you upgrade your mercenaries, you get them leveled up. It's not an experience game, they call it rapport, which makes sense because you're, developing a relationship with these people, kind of like, how you would play through the stories of them in Diablo 3. But as you're gaining rapport with them, you're getting upgrades to this bartering system. So it might add more legendaries and give you more options or more rerolls and stuff. There's a lot of stuff there, and you're getting some of this currency to actually barter with them. And it's nice. It's a new way to try and target legendaries, because you get a whole list of them. You go, oh, right, that one's really good. I'm going to buy that one off. And as you're leveling up, it's a pretty nice source of like, I really need to fill out a slot. And oh, there happens to be a glove in there that is going to fill out the like rare that I have currently equipped. So I really like that. And like as soon as you unlock the ability to go hire them, I would just go get that done right away, or just pick your favorite of them and then hire that person and be done with it and then come back to it later. But overall, I think the expansion is a really tight package. It is some awesome systems that they've thrown in there with a new zone and a new class and more story, and it's all excellent. It's at least a 7 out of 10 in places. Even in the worst places, it's a 7 out of 10. In the best places, it's a 10 out of 10. Like some of those really cool key moments in the story that just blow your mind, and you're like, whoa, that's really cool that they did that within Diablo, and in the engine and in the world. And then the lows are like, it just could have been a little bit better here or a little bit better there. But overall, it is a really nice expansion, and I think it is worth your time. Again, it's $40. If you can't afford it, wait for it to go on sale. It ain't going anywhere. At that point, you might have season 7 and be able to continue the story a little bit more, right? But if not, then it's fine. You could just pick it up now and jump in just like the rest of us and enjoy it. I do recommend playing the Spiritborn. It is a lot of fun for a class, but if you just want to stick with your class that there's no problem with that either. There's new skills for them. They're all excellent with new legendaries and everything. It is awesome. And none of this is even talking about some of the other end game systems, like the Undercity, which is, I guess the best way that I could describe it without getting into too much details. It's kind of like the Diablo 4's version of Greater Rifts. In a cool way. Like it's a time trial thing. You have a certain amount of time to get to the end boss. Killing certain enemies will increase the time that you have. Every time you change floors, you gain like 30 seconds. And there's other bonuses that you can get through basically the start of the thing before you even start. Like you can offer things to get different bonuses and different kinds of loot, or hunt down specific kinds of loot. And then there's these like braziers, I guess is what they are, like little light things where you can hit those throughout the run and it'll summon monsters that you can kill to gain or to increase this bar that you have. If you fill the bar up all the way, you get like the maximum amount of rewards, but you could just like blast through it if you wanted to without filling the bar all the way and still get to the end of the boss and kill the boss and get the rewards that way. You just wouldn't get additional stuff by filling the bar. So like it's a weird hybrid between like a Greater Rift and some other systems, but it works really well, and I've enjoyed the several that I've done so far, and I think that end game wise it's a nice pairing with what we already have. But now that the game has been out for a couple days, I'm incredibly curious what your guys' thoughts are. So please leave them in the comments below. Let me know what you're thinking of Vessel of Hatred so far. And in addition to that, let me know what kind of player are you? Are you the one who's been playing nonstop every season? Are you coming back just, at the beginning of each season? Or have you come back for the first time since the launch of D4? Or is this your first jumping into point for Diablo 4? Either way, I think all of those opinion points are valid, and I'm really curious to see where people are standing on it thus far. But if you want to see more videos from me, I upload every single day and have been doing so since 2011, never missed a day. So make sure to subscribe for more videos. And of course, if you want to support the channel, you could become a channel member by hitting the join button down below. But with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. We shall see you all next time.